children, welcome back to another recapitulation video of mine. Today we are going to concentrate on the first geographical lesson of class 10, Resource and Development. Children, this is part 1 of the video and there's two parts for this video, part 1 and part 2. So let's begin with part 1.
Well, children, what do you mean by the word resources? Resources mean something which is available in our environment. That's point 1. Which should satisfy our needs. Point 2. Which is technologically accessible. Number 4. Which is culturally accepted by the society. And number 5. Which is economically feasible. So I repeat, available in the environment, satisfy the need of the people, technologically available to the people, culturally accepted by the society, and which is also very, very economical. Now let's classify the resources. Resources can be broadly classified into two categories, natural and human. Now let's look what comes under natural. Natural can be again divided into renewable and non-renewable. Renewable means resources which can be reproduced, and non-renewable which cannot be reproduced or which takes millions of years to reproduce. Renewable resources can be again classified into continuous or flow and biological. Continuous or flow means which is continuously available, like wind, water. Biologically can be again further classified into natural vegetations and wildlife. Now let's look at non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources are further categorized into two, recycle like metals and non-recycle like fossil fuels. The next broad category under resources are humans. Humans are divided into structure and institutions and quantity and quality. So classifications of resources are again, I repeat, natural and human. Natural is again further divided into renewable and non-renewable. Renewable is again further divided into continuous and biological. There's under biological you have natural and wildlife. Non-renewable is recycle and non-recycle. Human is structure and institutions like schools, organizations, etc. and quantity and quality. Types of resources. Resources are basically categorized into four based on origin, based on exhaustibility, ownership and status of development. Now let's look at them one by one. Based on origin. This is further categorized into two, biotic and abiotic. Biotic means those resources which are found in the atmosphere and which has got life like human beings, animals, plants, etc. Abiotic are those which does not have life. For example, rocks, minerals, etc. The next category is based on exhaustibility. This is further divided again into two, renewable and non-renewable. Renewable resources are those resources which can be renewed or reproduced by physical, chemical or mechanical process. For example, solar and wind energy, water, forest and wildlife. Non-renewable are those renewable resources which cannot be reproduced and which takes millions of years to reproduce. For example, minerals or fossil fuels. Now let's look into the third category based on ownership. This is again further divided into four. Number 1, individual resources which is owned by an individual. For example, your mobile, it is owned by you. Your dad's car is owned by your father, etc. Community resources, those resources which is owned by the people living in a particular community or a particular locality or a particular state. For example, the municipal parks, the burial grounds, etc. The third category is national resources, the resources which belongs to a particular nation. For example, all the minerals, water resources, forest, wildlife, etc. which comes within that particular political boundary, and oceanic area up to 12 nautical miles are all called national resources. International resources. Let's take Antarctica, the vast stretch of oceans. These are not owned by any nation. This is called international resources and this is managed by the United Nations. Now we come to the last subheading, that is status of development. Now let's look into it one by one. First one is developed resources. Resources like mines, where the minerals has been recovered and production has started taking place in full capacity. This is called developed resources. Next one is potential resources, where resources are there in the region. You know there's a resource in that particular region, but it has not been utilized. For example, let's take the place like Rajasthan and Gujarat, where we know it has the potential for solar and wind energy, but unfortunately, it has not been put to use. The next one is known as stock. Stock means resources which cannot be used. You know resources are there, but you cannot use it because you don't have the technology. For example, let's take hydrogen. Hydrogen is found in water. Hydrogen is found in air. Using two hydrogen atoms, we can create clean energy. But unfortunately, we don't have the technology to create clean energy. So this is called stock. We know it is available, but we cannot use it. The last one is called reserve. Reserve means which is not utilized to its full capacity, or we can say it can be used in the future, but it's not used today. For example, let's take ethanol. Ethanol we get from sugarcane. We can extract ethanol from sugarcane. And this can be used as fuel. But are we using ethanol as fuel today? No, children. But maybe in the future, we'll start using ethanol as fuel. So this is called reserve. Sustainable economic development. What do you mean by this word, children? Sustainable economic development. So let's take an example. Let's say the example of the people living in the forest. People living in the forest, they cut down trees to make houses. They use wood for fire, and also for medicine uses, purpose, etc. But at the same time, these people also planted new trees. So this is called sustainable economic development. Means they use the wood of the forest for the present development, for their own development, and by planting trees, they don't affect the environment, and also they see the future generation are also not affected. So sustainable economic development means development that takes place without damaging the environment, and development in the present is not compromised with the need of the future generation. Now the next one is, what are the problems faced in resource planning? So the main problem is we the human beings. We human beings use resources indiscriminately. We use it to satisfy our greed. We use the resources so that we can accumulate more and more wealth, which leads to a division in society, that is rich becoming richer and the poor becoming poorer. And because of this indiscriminative or exploitation of resources, this has led to global economical crisis like global warming, etc. So these are the problems faced in resource planning. How is resource planning taking place in India? Well, it has got three stages. The first one is identification and inventory of resources across the region of the country. That means we have to identify where the resources are, which state has particular resources, etc. How is this done? This is done by survey, mapping, quantity and quality estimation, and measurement of resources. The second step is having a planned structure along with appropriate technology, skill and institution which will implement the plan. The third one is matching the resource development plan or matching the plan structure with the overall national development plan, or let's say the 5-year plan. Children, we know India is a vast country. Land in India is divided into 3 relief features. 30% is mountains, 43% is plains and remaining 27% is plateau. We also learned in class 9 that India has 5 major physical features: the northern mountains, the northern plains, plateau, the great Indian desert, coastal and the 2 islands. So now let's look into the land resources in India. The land resources in India is divided into 5: fallow land, forest, land not available for cultivation, net sown area and other cultivated land. Now let's see them one by one. First, let's have a look at fallow land. Fallow land is again divided into current fallow and other than current fallow. What do you mean by current fallow? Land that has not been cultivated for 1 or less than 1 year. Other than current fallow means land that remain uncultivated for 1 to 5 years. Other cultivated lands are further divided into permanent pasture, land under treetops and cultivable wastelands. These lands are of poor quality or of too high to cultivate. So, sometimes they are cultivated after 2 or 3 years. Now we come to the net sown area. Net sown area means total area of land which is under cultivation. Then we have the forest, which we know is rich in resources, and the last one is the land not available for cultivation. That can be further divided into barren or wasteland and land for non-agricultural use. Barren and wasteland means lands which cannot be cultivated at all or cannot be used for cultivation. A typical example is Ran of Kutch. Land for non-agricultural use means it is used for buildings, making roads, factories, etc. Well, children, I hope all the important concept related to this chapter is very clear to you now. Thank you for listening. See you again with another recapitulation video.